My name is Krista Staheli, and I'm going to teach you today all about blemishes. I've got a few speckled here and there all around my face, and they're all just a little bit different. So I'm going to help you understand how to identify the color, at least the excess color, the color that we want to get rid of, and make them disappear. So I want to point out a couple of things. With blemishes, you want to make sure they are as hydrated as possible. So if you have like a crusty scab on top of it, just dab a little extra moisturizer on it after your normal routine. Let that soak in. Also, if you're able to like shave your face, get like any excess dry skin off. Obviously you don't want to get rid of that enough or so much that you bleed, so don't take it that far, but if you're able to slough off any of the dry skin, that's also helpful. Other than that, we're gonna just jump in to our blemishes. So first of all, I like to look at my face really well and decide which blemishes stand out the most, the ones that are the most obnoxious, the most distracting, and definitely, I mean, all signs are pointing to that one for me. And then these ones right here, mostly the ones on my chin. You know, I've got a couple up there as well. They don't bother me as bad, but it's probably because they're not as loud and angry. They're like on their way out. They're more of like in the healing stage, I guess. So I'm gonna just start in this zone right here, and maybe I'll get a little closer so you can see just just how colorful that is. So I'm just gonna grab my brush. We see that there's a little more to it than, there's not just like one guy, there's a few. There's like 5 or 6 little areas, and there's actually more than one color in that area. So instead of just plopping one color on that whole area, I'm gonna look at that, like I'm gonna zoom in on that area and find the very darkest point. So I'm gonna point to what I think is the darkest point. Right there, and then probably right under there where there's a little shadow. And so that's what we have to do with blemishes, is really pick them apart and find the darkest point in that blemish and pinpoint that color first and solve that problem first, and then we can move on to another one. If we get the wrong color on, it'll be pretty obvious, and if we get the right one on, it'll be obvious too. It'll just kind of disappear. The only thing with this blemish specifically is right now it's still a little bit raised, and it also has a little bit of a scab on it too. So it already has a little bit more texture than I want on it, but there's nothing I can do about it. And so I'm just gonna work on getting rid of the excess color, and then it won't be so obnoxious. So let's go for it. Anything that's dark I know has blue in it, so it also looks a little bit purpley to me. So I'm gonna work with a color that has a little bit of purple and a little bit of blue. And I'm gonna use my spot brush. With blemishes, this brush is an absolute must because it's such a intricate, precise little action we have here. So I'm gonna find the darkest point. I've got my color on, and I'm just gonna tap ever so slightly. And then I'm gonna get right under there in that shadow. Okay, that's already lightening up a little bit. Okay, and I'm gonna just add a tiny bit more right there. And it's so easy to get too much color on because you have to use the tiniest little amount. So I'm gonna just tell you something. A lot of people will get carried away like blending it out, but we're really trying not to blend out. So if you get a little bit too much product on your skin, you can flip this brush around to the fluffy side, and you can lightly tap it, but make sure when you're pressing onto it that you're not pressing and swiping over. You're going straight up and down, and that will just diffuse the color a tiny bit. But that, like I said, is only if you get too much product, which can be really easy to do. There's definitely no blending going on. You want to keep that that color on the color that we're trying to solve for. Otherwise, you'll create this halo effect, which we really don't want. So now I'm just looking at these other areas that maybe have the exact same color that I was working with over here, and then we'll come back to it. If you get too carried away in one area, it makes it all really red, and then you end up over correcting, which we don't want either. So I'll get these other colors that are a little bit blue and a little bit purple. They're dark, but they look purple to me, so it means that they have a little bit of blue and a little bit of purple. That's kind of how I decide. But even in this one, it's got a center that's lighter, and then around the edges it's darker. So I'm just gonna hit the outside edge there. Okay, next I'm gonna go to all the areas that look purple to me. So purple, I've come to realize, is a color that looks a little bit purple and a little bit pink even. So I'm gonna use a yellow to counteract those. So areas like this one, and I have a little bit of purple through here, and then a tiny bit of this leftover is purple as well. I'm gonna zap those real fast with yellow because it's the opposite of purple, and then we'll go to the next color. Okay, so I got all the purple areas, and already I feel like it's toned down so much. Still got a little bit here, and then I've got this guy up here. So I took care of the purple half of this guy up here, but the part that's left over almost looks the same color as the freckles all around it. So I know that there must be green, because anytime that it looks brown, that means it's green. And if it's a little bit darker, it means that it has a little blue in it. So I think it's a little bit more green than blue, but it's still a pretty good mix. I'm gonna use something that has a little bit of red and a little bit of orange to get that one. Just on the outside area. Okay, that really took care of it. Okay, I feel like that one is good. Now I'm gonna move down to this area right here, and it looks to me like it's pretty red. What's left over is pretty red. And that bottom one is pretty raw, so I don't even know if it's gonna accept color right now. So I'm just gonna work with the top one. So I'm gonna need something that has a little bit of green in it, but it's not like a true red. It's not like this fire hydrant bright red. It's a little bit dark, so I know it must have a little blue in it. I'm going to use something that has a little bit of yellow and a little bit of green, because I think there's some purple in there as well. Okay, that just took a lot of the color out. Now what's left over is this little shadow right there. Let's use something with a little bit of orange in it. Probably just straight O, right in that shadow. Okay, that whole area is so much less loud. I'm gonna let this area get a little less raw, and then I'll cover that up with the exact same thing that I just barely did, and that will be golden. And then I'll show you how it looks after I'm done. I'm just gonna do my sculpt real fast. And normally if I have any blemishes in here, I just wanted to point out that you use your neutrals. So any color that looks like these ones will be the colors that you use when you're doing your sculpt. You don't use the bright colors in your sculpt area.